Welcome to Bukhara, a city where history is alive at every turn and located at the center of the Great Silk Road. Together with Doka Tours, we will embark on an exciting tour of the historic Arc stronghold today, which is a representation of strength, might, and Uzbekistan's most extensive cultural legacy. The mysteries of palace life, the emir's secrets, and hundreds of years of uninterrupted history are all concealed behind these magnificent walls. Are you prepared to enter the ambiance of the past? Then buckle up, the tour is about to start. Click the bell and subscribe before we start. We have even more fascinating information on Central Asia and its breathtaking locations in store for you. Archaeologists estimate that the Arc citadel was established far before the Arab conquest in the 4th century BC. It was more than simply a fort. It was a city inside a city, encircled by fortified walls, and inhabited by the rulers, their trusted advisors, sages, and warriors. It was first established, so the story goes, by the legendary hero Siyavush, who erected the first fortress here. The imposing portal that welcomes us to the Arc Fortress instantly transports us to the era of ancient times and regal authority. A huge facade with 2 circular towers, joined by a gallery and an arched passageway is what greets you. Emir Muzaffar renovated this entrance in the 19th century, and it is still the Arc's defining feature. A mark of authority, the Emir's banner frequently floated above the entryway. A ramp that leads up the paved road where guards once stood is located just past the gates. The Emirs and their visitors used to arrive at the palace along this route. You enter an inner courtyard, a sort of ceremonial hall of a medieval fortress as soon as you climb. Here, you are welcomed with receiving areas for advisors and delegations, as well as a mosque from the 19th century with beautiful wood carvings. Ancient coinage, household objects, maps, and relics are on display at the Arc History Museum. The Arc's entry was regarded as a sign of authority until the 20th century. Not everyone was allowed to enter. Ordinary residents needed a specific decree to enter. The Arc History Museum displays ancient coins, household items, maps, and artifacts. Until the 20th century, the Arc's entrance was seen as a symbol of power. Not everyone was permitted to enter. Ordinary citizens could not enter without a special decree. The Juma Mosque of Arc, also known as the Mosque of the Emirs of Bukhara, is a modest but historically significant mosque located in the center of the Arc Fortress. It represented the monarch's spiritual power in addition to being a location for Friday prayers. Designed specifically for the Bukhara emir and his retinue, the mosque was constructed in the 17th century. It was guarded and locked, unlike mosques in cities. Only high-ranking guests and members of the governing class prayed there. You feel as though you have traveled back in time as you stroll through the Arc Citadel's winding, stone-paved streets. You can sense history here amidst the imposing walls and shadows of old structures. Then, after a few more steps, a breathtaking panorama of the old city of Bukhara appears in front of us. The domes of mosques and madrassas, including the Kalyan Minaret, the Miri Arab Madrassa, and the Toki Zargaron dome, are visible from the top of the Arc walls, as are the roofs of old homes and minarets. From the Silk Road era until the present, this vista appears to provide a living narrative of the city. We proceed down the winding, narrow streets that appear to have been designed specifically to allow you to gently take in every aspect of the historic city. These streets in Arc like a maze with a new tale to tell at every corner. We now reach the Coronation Hall, one of the Citadel's most important locations. The inauguration of the Bukhara Emirs was held here in a solemn setting. The most significant occasions in the Khanate's history, the declaration of sovereignty, oaths, and ambassadorial receptions, took place beneath the hall's lofty vaults, which were embellished with carvings and decorations. The coronation hall represented the authority and legitimacy of the sovereign and was more than just a formal setting. There, ancient rites from the Samanid and later Manghudi kingdoms were meticulously observed. Being here entails being on the exact location where the Bukhara Khanate's history came to an end. Between the 7th and 8th centuries, the Ark took on its current form, and between the 10th and 15th centuries, it underwent extensive reconstruction and expansion. Mosques, a library, reception rooms, a mint, a prison or zindan, and the Emir's palace were all located there. In the 10th century, Ibn Sina, Avicenna, a great scholar and philosopher of the East who served at the court of the Samanid Emir, worked in Ark. The Ark continued to be the home of the Bukharan Emirs until 1920, just before the Red Army arrived. However, the castle was partially damaged during the airstrikes, which were initially deployed in Central Asia. However, the majority of its architectural features have persisted to this day. The Ark Citadel is one of the most significant historical sites in the Islamic East, and a prime example of early Middle Ages urban defensive construction, according to UNESCO and studies by the Institute of Archaeology of Uzbekistan. The Ark is now accessible to tourists. It has a museum with recreated rooms of the previous Emir's palace, historical exhibitions, and ancient antiquities. We appreciate you staying with us and seeing this entire video. Stay with us if you want to explore Uzbekistan's old towns, culture, and history. There are still many great things to discover. The description of this video contains all the specifics. Till we meet again with Doka Tours. Thus, we continue our exploration of the historic and enigmatic Bukhara. Our next destination is Chashmai Ayub, also known as Job's Source in Russian, one of the city's most venerated and enigmatic locations. Not only is this a historic structure, but it is also a site steeped in folklore, spiritual strength, and a great deal of reverence from the community. Chashmai Ayub translates to Job's Spring from Persian. Legend has it that when the prophet Ayub, Job in the Bible, beat the ground with his staff while traveling through the Bukhara region, a spring of pure water sprung up to relieve the thirst of the drought-stricken inhabitants. The water here has been regarded as therapeutic ever since. For believers looking for healing, this spring has turned into a destination. The tomb was first built in the 12th century, while the Karakhanid dynasty was in power. The monarch Arslan Khan ordered the construction of a cylinder dome, which is the oldest architectural feature. One of the few monuments from that era still standing is this dome. In contrast to most traditional mausoleums, Chashmai Ayub's dome is conical, like a helmet, and characteristic of Khorasan architecture, modern-day Iran and Afghanistan. The building has a unique, almost mystical look due to the dome's design. The tomb has undergone multiple reconstructions, with notable modifications made during Timur's, also known as Tamerlane's, rule in the 14th century. Historians claim that some of the most intricate architectural features were added during that time. Even now, the mausoleum's internal spring still works. Its water is cool and extremely clear. Because they think the water is therapeutic, both locals and visitors come here to collect it. It has been customary to drink this water for ages. An old underground canal that supplies water to the spring has been validated by scientists, specifically archaeologists from the Institute of History of the Academy of Sciences of the Republic of Uzbekistan. The magnitude of this engineering solution is remarkable, and it demonstrates the excellent caliber of hydraulic engineering of the Middle Ages. Chashmai Ayub is only a short stroll west of the well-known Samani complex. It fosters a sense of calm and spiritual serenity because it is surrounded by gardens and tiny marketplaces. It is a location where history, culture, and faith all coexist. Every year, the spring's water is tested for purity and drinkability, and the findings are always excellent. The region was occupied long before the Islamic era, as evidenced by the discovery of 6th and 7th century town ruins during archaeological excavations close to the tomb. A tiny museum dedicated to the history of Bukhara's water supply existed here during the Soviet era. We thank you for traveling with us through the ancient streets and holy places of Bukhara. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. And there are still many secrets and treasures of the East ahead of us. We continue our trek through Bukhara, friends. I advise you to begin at the beginning if you are new to us. The top left corner of the screen contains a hint. We then proceed. Following our introduction to the magnificent Arc Citadel and the magnificent Lyabi-Hauz ensemble, we proceed to the market, which is the center of any eastern city. The Bukhara Bazaar, or Bozor as the locals refer to it, is more than just a marketplace. It is a living record of Uzbekistan's culture and way of life. The market has been around for generations. Bukhara was a significant commerce hub on the Great Silk Road as early as the 9th century, when the Samanids were in power. Silk, spices, jewels, china, and many other items were brought here by traders from China, India, Persia, and Arabia. As mandated by the Islamic urban design canon, the central market was situated at the intersection of the old city's main streets. The bazaar ought to be nearer to the mosque, madrasa, and bathhouse. The so-called taki, or domed bazaars, became one of the emblems of the commercial Bukhara. The most well-known of these are Taki Zargaron, the market for goldsmiths, Taki Tilakoran, the market for jewelers, and Taki Sarafin, the domed market of money changers. During the Shaibanid dynasty's rule in the 16th century, these domed buildings were built as both commerce hubs and the city's architectural highlights. For instance, Taki Sarafan, which was close to the well-known Lyabi-Hauz ensemble, served as a cash exchange center. The word saraf in Persian, which means money changer, is the source of its name. Because Bukhara served as a conduit between the East and the West, the most significant financial transactions occurred here. The jeweler's market, Taki Tilakoran, was well known for its artisans who produced the best gold and silver goods. Beyond Khorasan and Mavaranar, jewelry inlaid with turquoise, coral, and jade was sold. The essence and ambiance of these locations have been maintained in the contemporary Bukhara Bazaar. You will encounter vendors of traditional textiles, ikats and adras, copper minting experts, spice and dried fruit vendors, and of course the renowned Bukhara Samsa as you stroll down its winding shopping avenues. Fresh flatbread, cinnamon, cumin, barberry, and silk embroidery with gold thread are just a few of the vibrant colors and scents that fill the local marketplaces. Particular attention should be paid to traditional handicrafts. Each of them is the result of centuries of knowledge and crafts passed down from generation to generation. In the textile rows you can find embroidered robes, chapan, skull caps with unique patterns, carpets from the Bukhara and Shahrazad schools. Fascinating fact, there are still vendors in the bazaar whose families have been in business for 5 or 6 generations. A distinct component of the trip, their tales and merchandise are infused with remembrance and reverence for the city's past. Historian Abdullah Arapov asserts that Bukhara markets were important for social as well as economic reasons. They served as forums for news sharing, conversation, and even political discussions. Around the market, a sort of city within a city was created, complete with caravanserais, kanakas, tea houses, and craft shops. When the Russian Empire arrived in the 19th century, the bazaar changed. Despite the emergence of new trade routes and the sale of European goods, the classic Oriental essence persisted. The bazaar was somewhat restructured during the Soviet Union in the early 20th century, but it once more flourished in its original form following Uzbekistan's independence. The Bukhara Bazaar is more than just a market these days. The city's living heart, an outdoor museum, has been beating continuously for almost a millennium. In addition to shopping, people come here for feelings, impressions, and a true taste of the East. Visit the market if you want to experience the energy of the historic city. In conclusion of our story, let us remind you, Bukhara Bazaar is a living monument to traditions. And even though much has changed here over time, its soul has remained the same. Ancient domes, the ringing of coins, the aroma of spices, and the warm smiles of sellers, all this is the real Bukhara. We appreciate you joining us on this exciting tour of historic Bukhara. The voice of history reverberates across the centuries in every structure and street here. If you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so you don't miss the next episodes. There are still many amazing places of Uzbekistan and Central Asia, cities, legends, and real Oriental magic ahead. And if you want to experience all of this firsthand, the Doka Tours staff will assist you in planning a journey that will never be forgotten. All of the connections and links are listed in the video's description. Till the next time, and may you constantly find new things along the route. As we continue our tour of Bukhara, we come to the Samanid Mausoleum, which is situated in the Samanid Park, a verdant park in the city's center. This location formerly housed an old cemetery, a portion of which was eventually transformed into a public area. Gardens and trees all around, the mausoleum appears particularly serene and imposing. It is impossible to miss this 9th century brick marvel as you stroll through the park's alleyways. It seems to grow out of the ground and blend in with the surroundings naturally. This place creates a unique environment for visitors, making them feel as though they are in the middle of history, tucked away under the shade of ancient trees. As though the earth beneath our feet was pulsing with accumulated history as we stood in front of the Samanid Mausoleum. Constructed in the 9th and 10th centuries over a millennium ago, this tomb is little in size yet grand in spirit. The shadow of Ismail Samani, a strongman and the founder of the Samanid Empire, seemed to me to still linger amid the shadows of the cypress trees in the neighboring park, sometime between 892 and 943. It's the first. Central Asia's first Islamic tomb. Not composed of clay, not made of wood, but of brick that has been baked. A representation of the passage from the transient to the permanent. When I stared at its walls, I thought I could hear the rhythm of a chessboard pattern in the ornamentation, like the beating pulse of an empire that had vanished into the ages. Remarkably, this tomb was hidden for a very long period. The structure was buried behind a layer of sand and dirt following the 13th century Genghis Khan assault. It was only rediscovered in the 20th century, as though Bukhara itself chose to remind everyone of its enduring value. By chance, archaeologists discovered it. Or wasn't it a coincidence? One night, half asleep, I thought I saw a figure in a brocade robe stepping down from the porch of the mausoleum. He was walking toward me, and in his eyes was reflected the sky over Baghdad, the lands conquered by the Samanid army, and the darkness of libraries burned in the future. He was silent, but I heard. We did not build for death. We built to remember. When I blinked, everything vanished. In the moonlight, only the Mausoleum's dome was particularly dazzling. When I glanced at the bricks, I saw simply geometry and silence, not a single design or inscription. I realized that the Samanid Mausoleum is a piece of architecture that communicates without using words. While Ismail Samani was constructing his capital city of Bukhara, the Vikings were establishing the English settlement of York, and the Tang people in China were going through a period of cultural blossoming. Despite the fact that every civilization followed its own path, the mausoleum in Bukhara remains a resolute reminder of the passage of time across everything. Furthermore, locations like the Samanid Mausoleum are locations on Earth where the fabric of time is thinner, if you believe science fiction authors like Ray Bradbury or Stanislav Lem, where the memories of the world are whispered, rather than wiped, to everyone who is willing to pause and pay attention. We appreciate you watching this video through to the finish. Please like and support us so we can keep going. We proceed with our tour of Bukhara, a city where history is brought to life at every turn. Now we will go for a walk along the ancient streets that preserve the spirit of centuries. Here, between the clay facades, madrassas, mosques, and arched passages, you can feel the real Oriental flavor. Each street leads to new discoveries, be it an ancient caravanserai, a domed bazaar, or a secluded courtyard with carved doors. Together, let's stroll to the locations where pilgrims, sages, and traders once strolled. Bukhara is holding back from sharing its tale. Samanid Park is one of the most cozy and symbolic places in Bukhara, where history meets nature. It is located near the Old City, and it is here that one of the main architectural monuments of the Islamic world is located, the Samanid Mausoleum, Ainkisaman Maik centuries, recognized as a masterpiece of pre-Mongol architecture of Central Asia. This location was once the location of an old Muslim graveyard. The region was planted and transformed into a green park in the 20th century, where you may now walk among blossoming trees, fountains, and shaded pathways. Despite being close to busy streets, there is a unique quiet and tranquility here. The park not only beautifies the city, but also serves as a place for reflection and spiritual relaxation. Tourists and locals come here to touch the legacy of the Samanid era, a dynasty that stood at the origins of statehood and culture in Muslim Central Asia. Feel the breath of antiquity that practically floats in the air here as you stroll through Samanid Park and unwind under the shelter of centuries-old trees. In the 16th century, when Bukhara became the capital of the Shaybanids, trading domes began to be actively built to protect street trade from the heat and sand. Their architecture was thought out to the smallest detail. Ventilation, light, acoustics. All this made the bazaars not just markets, but cultural centers of life. The streets and bazaars of Bukhara are not just architecture. They are texts. Texts written by the wind, shadows, and time. You only have to want them to, and they will start talking or whispering just for you. golden light was like sand, gently settling on the walls of yellow brick, I found myself on one of the streets of old Bukhara. Wooden shutters that were peeling with age, arched vaults, and small hallways linking homes all appeared to be abandoned. Instead, it appeared as though the city was just breathing steadily and gently, and everything was as alive as it had been a millennium ago. There is no bother on these streets. They are not run along by people. Like the caravans that traveled the Great Silk Road, they move gently alongside them. There has always been more to Bukhara than just a city. It was the intellectual center of the Muslim East during the reign of Ismail Samani in the 9th century. Here, Ibn Sina taught, and hundreds of students, academics, philosophers, and business people were familiar with the streets. There is no bother on these streets. They are not run along by people. Like the caravans that traveled the Great Silk Road, they move gently alongside them. There has always been more to Bukhara than just a city. It was the intellectual center of the Muslim East during the reign of Ismail Samani in the 9th century. Here, Ibn Sina taught, and hundreds of students, academics, philosophers, and business people were familiar with the streets. A young man in a turban was selling papyrus and ink on the corner. He gave me a quick look but remained silent, as though he knew I wouldn't be around for long. A row of stores to the left included a bookbinder of embossed leather, a chemist with dried herbs, and a jeweler with silver. All of this took place between the same arches and inside the same walls as today. We found ourselves under one of the 4 famous trading domes of Bukhara, Tim Abdullah Khan. These bazaars were real economic centers. Here, they exchanged not only goods, but also stories, views, knowledge. In Tim Kobaldian, they sold fabrics and silks. In Tok Zarduzanov, gold and jewelry. In Tok Sarafan, currency and precious coins. Today, these bazaars are still alive, and in their shadows, craftsmen create ceramics, embossing, carpets, and knives, just like centuries ago. Thank you for viewing. There are still a ton of exciting things to come, so remember to like and subscribe. And we keep on traveling. Friends, we're continuing our tour across the incredible country of Uzbekistan today. We're going to the Citadel Mohi Hossa Palace, one of Bukhara's most beautiful and enigmatic sites. Here, love, mythology, and architectural beauty all come together. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel before we delve into the atmosphere of this wonderful historical heritage. There are still a ton of amazing stories and unique paths to discover. Well, it's time to step into the silence, where the walls remember more than books. Let's go back in time, together with Doka tours. A few kilometers from ancient Bukhara, among dusty roads and rustling plane trees, rises one of the most defined architectural complexes of Uzbekistan, Citadel Mohi Hossa, which in Persian means the place where the star and the moon shine. This is not just a palace. It is a symbol of decline and rise, the last breath of Eastern splendor on the threshold of the 20th century. As soon as you approach the Citadel Mohi Hossa complex, not just an architectural object opens up before you, but a portal to a bygone era, to a world where luxury, refined taste, and the spirit of the East are intertwined in a single ensemble. The main gate of the residence greets guests with a monumental arch with elegant stucco and a pattern in the traditional Bukhara style. The facade is decorated with carved ganch, decorative tiles, and calligraphic elements. All this symbolizes the status and power of the emirs who ruled Bukhara. In this part of the complex, there is a guardhouse, a room for guards and servants. Here, close associates and guests who were not allowed into the inner chambers of the emir were once received. This entrance plays an important role. It seems to prepare the visitor for a meeting with magnificence. Every detail, from carved wooden doors to mosaic friezes, creates the feeling that you are entering the territory of a sacred, personal space, where history still breathes under the shade of plane trees. Let's go further and find ourselves in one of the most picturesque and fabulous parts of the Lyabi-Hauz complex, in the inner garden where peacocks roam freely, and before us opens the elegant summer palace, the summer palace of the Emir. The very stunning sky blue arches, surrounded by elaborate painting and filigree carving, are the first sight that astounds you as soon as you approach the Lyabi-Hauz palace complex. This is more than just architecture. It is stone and paint poetry from the East. The palace is known for its blue arches. The arches themselves are constructed in the traditions of Bukhara architecture with subtly Persian and Russian aesthetics, and their color represents purity, the sky, and spirituality. Their beautiful shapes and intricate patterns give the impression that every piece comes to life in the sunlight. The overall appearance creates a sense of calm grandeur, as if the Emir wanted to hide here from the noisy world and find silence among the shadows of the trees and the murmur of the water. The interiors of the summer palace combine the traditions of Bukhara and the influence of Russia of the late 19th century. The main reception hall amazes with its mirrored walls, painted domes, and floral stained glass windows. The light in this hall plays with reflections, creating the illusion of endless space. Furniture with velvet and silk upholstery was imported from France and St. Petersburg. Chandeliers, clocks, cabinets, and armchairs are genuine antiques that highlight the Emir's riches and taste. Finishing touches include European mirrors, Chinese china, stained glass, and Ganch plaster, with gilding covering the ceilings and hand-painted blue, emerald, and gold walls. Carpets, silk fabrics, low furnishings, and numerous arches with lace carvings give the private rooms and lounges a cozy Eastern vibe. Emir Abdul Ahad Khan, 1985 and 1910, the ruler of the Emirate of Bukhara, a vassal state of the Russian Empire, started building the palace at the end of the 19th century. Legend has it that the Emir wanted to build a palace that would reflect the radiance of his young wife, who was a woman of unearthly beauty. She passed away too soon, and he named the palace Lyabi-Hauz, a star in the moon, in her honor. Under his son, Sayyid Alim Khan, 1910-1920, the final emir of Bukhara, the main structure was finished. The palace's architecture is an incredible fusion of Eastern eclecticism and European Art Nouveau, as the architects included Russian engineers in addition to local craftsmen. Let's proceed to the next site of the Lyabi-Hauz Palace complex, which is the emir's residence known as the Bedroom Building. For the Bukhara king, this building was a private haven where he could sleep and rest away from prying eyes. In contrast to the reception rooms and ceremonial halls, it is more tastefully and subtly furnished, representing the comfort and subtle Oriental aesthetics. The building's exterior is symmetrical and modest, with light arches, carved wooden cornices, and patterns of light stucco. Although everything appears more understated, there is genuine luxury, sophisticated, almost personal, hidden within. When the palace was being built, 1880 and 1910, the world was in turmoil. Art Nouveau and Art Nouveau were flourishing in Europe, and buildings by Hector Guimard and Otto Wagner were being created in Vienna, in France. In the Russian Empire, dachas for the royal family were being built in Livadia and Tsarskoye Selo. And in the very heart of Asia, in Bukhara, an eastern analog of Versailles was being created, where mirrors and minarets spoke to each other. Thus, the East tried to fit itself into the global cultural map, without abandoning traditions, but opening itself to the new. Frozen in architecture, Lyabi-Hauz is an Eastern fairy tale with a hint of European sorrow. Standing between two eras, the looming industrial realism of the 20th century and the medieval luxury of the East, this is Bukhara's final passionate sigh. The palace is accessible to everyone today, And each stride you take through its hallways is a step into a time when melancholy could become style and love might become architecture. Travel deeper, search for meanings, discover forgotten masterpieces. Travel with Dauka Tours. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. There's still a lot of interesting things ahead. And we continue our journey.